Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week a few friends get together and we discuss stories and we talk about them and we tell each other, you did a good job coming up with that idea. I am, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we're here to discuss a story. Someday, guys, I'm going to run out of little things to say at the start of the episode, and one of you guys are going to have to come up with something. Not quite out yet, but I had like a serious mind blank there a second ago. As I was like, oh gosh.
You were very good at coming up with that idea, Levi. I just want to...
Yep, we're doing the right thing. So we are here to discuss of Dragons and Men, which is a sequel to Trouble in Party Town. No, excuse me, a prequel to Trouble in Party Town, which I feel like really gives a Trouble in Party Town a bunch more depth with how we explained the way the world works and stuff like that. But before we get into the specifics, it's time to rate it. Reed, what's your rating for the story?
8.2.
8.2. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a very good score.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. The whole concept of, the higher beings or the gods, if you will, that set this place up and the interaction and the way that all that dynamic works out. Then you had these two sentient species, men and dragons, and trying to, get along in the world, right? And
right.
They've got all this backstory about how it all came into being. And I really thought it was interesting.
Absolutely. I thought it was interesting as well. My score is probably like a 7.8 because it didn't capture me in the same way that Trouble in Party Town did, but it's starting to.
That's fair.
I feel like we laid a lot of good groundwork for like the magic system, for why things are going the way they are, for why the dragons went away, for what made the dragons go away, for just to even who Xander's lineage is. The importance of the hero character, the importance of the world. That's a really big question that you have to ask yourself, that every storyteller has to ask themselves. And every person, in fact, has to ask themselves is like, what's going on with the world and why should I care?
Yep.
And I feel like a storyteller who gives a compelling reason why, because everyone can come up with good ideas, but creating a good idea about why the hero or the reader should care about the way the world is and the way it's going is, I think, a really important part of storytelling. And I only say that because it's a really important part of reading a story. I just started book 7 or 8, I think, of The Wheel of Time. I don't remember which one specifically it was. Book 8, Path of Daggers. And I'll admit, right now, the character who it's focusing on, I don't know why he's there. I don't know how he's affecting the world, and I'm having a hard time reading it, So all the context that we gave for why dragons acted the way they did, how they were created, what the purpose of the world is, I feel like will only bleed into making Trouble in Party Town that much more interesting. So I guess I'm changing my opinion and giving it an 8.5. Look at that, guys. I just talked myself into 1.5 more points. How about you, Seth? What did you think?
I was going to go with a straight 8. I know we rated the other one very high. I think you kind of touched on it a little bit. We laid down a lot of like prequel work. But I think as well, in kind of how you've brought this up a few times, a lot of the good ideas, but then not putting down some of the plot of what's happening until we're like kind of wrapping it all up.
Right.
And so I think it's full of, good base for what's going on. And so still rating, 8's pretty high. So I think it did very well. And I think you'd have to see it put together to see how it flows into each other. And I think it would do great. I think another thing to keep in mind too is as much as, especially when you're reading something, you want to know why like something is the way it is.
Right.
Right. Sometimes that's part of the allure to the story, is not knowing and kind of picking up a little bit of ideas from how the one story might be going. I'm thinking of like Trouble in Party Town, right? Because sometimes when the magic is explained, then it's no longer magical.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think that, and in this case, I think, how would you do it? Would you do like the one and then come out with the prequel, kind of like our thing did, so that you have the story and then you have the background? Or would you have it in the succession that, let's say you write this story, you write what happens in the other one and use it as the reference for what's happening in the subsequent sequel, but no one really gets that other version of the prequel until, let's say, it's posthumously, published after you die.
Yeah, I know that Terry Brooks wrote some, like, obviously he wrote the very famous Sword of Shannara, Elfstones, the whole Shannara series, which is really good. But then he did write prequels, which sometimes it's satisfying to see when you read a prequel, you see how things lined up. You're like, oh, that like really important ceremony that they're always doing was kind of like an offhanded thing. You get the, sometimes it's satisfying is all I'm saying. I don't know how it would be done, but sometimes it's satisfying to have Trouble in Party Town and then of Men and Dragons, and you can kind of see the, you know what I mean? You kind of see, you trace the lines back. You're like, I wonder how I wonder how this plot point is going to be instituted. I wonder how this plot point. Now, it can be done badly. So there were a couple of Dune books written by Frank Herbert's son that were like supposed to be explaining like the Butlerian Jihad and like the beginning of a bunch of the themes and elements in the Dune proper books. And they were okay. But the more I read them, the more I realize I don't really consider them a true prequel. Like the writing was just different enough that it was more like, this is one idea of how the prequel was. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's just one of the things that that's a ramble. That's a ramble. We'll call that a ramble. Any interesting references to books you guys have read in this one?
I mean, I guess nothing particularly comes to my memory. Maybe we mentioned a little bit while we were making it. I know that when you're dealing with, the people, dragon stuff, there's a lot of, there's going to be a lot of material that like other people have done this before, right? So perhaps there's references to things. I think Reed or you might have mentioned the Dragon Riders of Pern.
Yeah,
maybe not in like any specificalities. I haven't read those. I think I've got all of them somewhere, but I haven't read them. So, there could be some crossover, some ideas there.
Yeah. There was a lot of,
as far as,
sorry.
Yeah, no. So as far as that, anything I would have come up with has no reference to going, like, let's say, directly ripping off from those. But
well, I mean, I've been reading a lot of Wheel of Time recently, so I wouldn't say ripping off, but definitely we have a breaking. The Wheel of Time, a big theme is everything was kind of crazy and fantastical, and then there was a breaking and everything kind of crumbled down and is now being rebuilt. So, I've been reading a lot of Wheel of Time, like I said, and that has been a big reference for me with this whole idea. And that's one of the things I really like about this. I really like about this world is that it looks like it could sustain a lot of different storylines, which is one of the things I really like about Wheel of Time. Like right now there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 consistent storylines running, in where I'm at in book 8, and it ranges everywhere from like really high fantasy, lots of magic being used, to like really low fantasy, to lots of politics, lots of interpersonal things, lots of warfare. It's like it hits on every different layer of what's interesting. It's a pretty fair split of male and female as far as main, narrator characters. So you get like the good split of like how the different people think. And so it's like, it keeps you up. And I'm entering now what people typically in Wheel of Time called the slump. They say this is the boring part of Wheel of Time before things get interesting again. And I don't see it. And so that's one thing I like about this story is that it offers, you've got Xander, you've got Yellen, you've got all of these different characters. And in the same way, in this one of Dragons and Men, you've got lots of different dragons. You've got the hero and all of his children, because I imagine kind of where the story's going now is that it's a lot of his children. He's been around for a long time. And then you've got your guardians or angels. I don't remember exactly what I called them.
Guardians or watchers.
Yeah, the watchers or the judges of the change, who are just there to look at it. You have all their different perspectives, and then you get to see the world destroy. Like, that's one of the things, if I could have asked Robert Jordan to write another book or write another series of books, like if he was still alive, and he would have been like, hey, Levi, I want to write another series of books in the Wheel of Time. What should I write? I would be like, well, you better write The Breaking of the World. Obviously, you write the rise of Louis Theron Telamon and then the downfall of the world, ending with the probably what I would consider to be one of the best prologues ever written, which is the prologue for Wheel of Time, Eye of the World, the first book, which is where, Louis Theron dies. So it's like, I love that kind of story. I love that post-apocalyptic thing. I love the falling from grace thing. So I really like this. And like I said in the last episode, our review for Trouble in Party Town, I am currently working on a novel draft for this. I've finally decided to step out of just the idea creation zone and to move into more formulaic actual writing, which I'm really encouraged by, which I'm really happy about, because I feel like it's a really easy trap just to come up with short-term ideas all the time and never actually write them down. In fact, I don't remember who it was, but there was an author who talked about writing down your ideas is the final expression of actually having them. If you don't, they're wasted, And I don't feel like writing down or how we express them in this podcast is quite enough. I feel like it's a fun way to do it, but I don't feel like it's quite enough. So I'm hungry for more. Anyways, I'm really excited to write these books, guys.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they turn out.
When you're talking about the breaking of the world and the Age of Legends, when they you get a glimpse into it when people go through the
Terangrials.
Yes, and see it. You get going back generation after generation in reverse order, and and at the time just prior and just into spoiler. Yeah, if you haven't read Wheel of Time, maybe just turn this off. But I want a shock lance.
Oh yeah,
yeah, like that is. Can you imagine the ultimate crowd control weapon, right? You've got your riot police, and they've got their shock lances, and and then let's talk about breaking up a formation of loosely organized people.
Yeah. I think they were created to fight the Trollocs, because that's one of the things that was really interesting in the Wheel of Time. Is they said during the Age of Legend, the art of the sword was forgotten because it was no longer needed. And so when the War of the Power came about, which in my brain, when I first read the books years ago, I always thought it was spoilers for Wheel of Time here. If you've read Wheel of Time, if not, come forward at your own risk. I always thought it was the boar. Lanfear created the boar, and immediately, within a matter of days, it was filled, and the male half was tainted, and that was that. But no, the War of Power took 200 years. they had to like, it was because they all had to learn how to fight. Trollocs and Murdral weren't made like in a day, and that's one of the same things I wanted to bring about in this of Men and Dragons, is that the war, the breaking was an eventual kind of, it was like very cold in parts as just like civilization degraded, and then it was also very hot in other parts where there was contests over resources and things were lost. Like the Romans who eventually forgot their own language because they'd been conquered so many times and information was destroyed. So even though they lived in Rome, they forgot their own language. That sort of thing, kind of slow degradation. Anyways, it's I really like it. I like thinking about it, but that's my current problem, is that I could think about it all day and I need to just start writing it out and figuring out how it's going to go. So
I have to say, Seth, I remember right toward the end of the last episode, I just kind of blurted out a couple of references and I can't even remember what, and I said, I should have saved that for the recap, but I can't even remember what they were now. But yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah, I remember you blurting them out, but I also don't remember what they were.
Okay, must not have been too big.
I remember hearing it and being like, wow, that would be a really good place for the recap. Too bad we aren't doing the recap right now.
That's exactly what I thought once they were out of my mouth. Well.
Yeah. Well. And any other good ideas you guys have? Any other cool reminiscence? Otherwise, I will draw our story elements for next week when we start a new story.
Sounds great.
All right. Yep. Reed, give me a number 1 through 11.
11.
All right. We were going to do a prequel of a prequel, but I think instead we are going to do a hard pivot to something else.
Oh, okay. That's fine with me.
Yeah, that would have been a prequel to this, which I don't know. Yeah. I suppose. Do you guys want to do a prequel to this? No. We'll do. We'll try something new. Sometimes enough is enough. Not.
I think as far as what kind of starts out before this is already kind of hinted at.
Yeah.
And would be, let's say, broadly not as associable to just this story, but probably broader to maybe many other connected stories.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about creating a giant timeline of all stories, because we have a lot of reoccurring themes, like a race that seeds humanity on different worlds and stuff like that. I would like to start creating that interconnected web of stories and say, these are connected, these are tertiarily connected, these are parallel, but not really. Read the dive. Yes. Seth, can you give me a number 1 through 9?
5. 1, 2, 3.
All right. I have genre. Reed has beginning scene, and Seth has history. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Wait It Gets Better. If you liked this episode, if you thought that it was interesting and cool, let us know. Our email address is waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com, or you can message us on Twitter. I just wanted you guys to know I did speak to a Sam the other day, who I had told about the podcast, and he is an avid listener. And in fact, he has used some of our episodes. I'm trying to remember which one he said, but he's used some of our episodes for inspiration for his D&D game.
Oh, cool.
So yes, he is a podcast listener. He's back a couple of episodes, so he probably won't hear this for another year or so. But hey, Sam, if you're still listening, give me a high five next time I see you. It'll be great. Thank you so much for listening. That's all, folks. We will see you guys next week when it gets better.